Welcome. Here's what we're going to do today. Loose wildflowers. We're going to start off with nothing in mind. We're just going to play. So I'm just splashing on some colors on my paper here. It's a little bit out of focus. I apologize for that. But we're just taking different colors, blue and some green, maybe some yellow, some rose. Any colors that you like. I'm just splashing them on here. In this painting, I didn't have anything in particular in mind, except I knew that I wanted to do wildflowers. So I just started splashing the colors that I thought would look nice on my painting. And I have a great big mop brush. So I am using a number 14. It's got a round mop brush because it holds a lot of water. And then I'm coming back in with a flat brush. You could use the brown brush too. And just adding some water to my paper, and I'm spreading around those dots. So just here and there, I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll have some yellow flowers and some orange flowers. Maybe the blue sky is back there. Just kind of smearing it around. Here's some purple that I'd put down here and into the rose. And the rose and the purple look really pretty when they mix together. Also with the yellow. And I have to be careful when I have the orange over here, because the orange and the yellow, you can see in that bottom right corner, look a little bit muddy sometimes when you mix them up. So I usually try to avoid orange and purple, orange and yellow together, but there's brown in nature, so if there's a little bit of brown in it, it's going to be okay. Besides, this whole thing's going to dry super pastel. We're not gonna see it too much. So in fact, I'm going to come back and just add a little bit more watercolor paint on my paper, get a little bit darker of a background, and kind of leave the area where I want some yellow flowers. I'm not going to mix in the blue too much, but if it mixes in, it makes green, so that's pretty too. So as the colors I choose, if they mix together well, it's a bonus, right? So here I'm just putting in a little bit more rose, but when I put it with the blue, it makes it pretty purple. A little bit of green. And it's all going to dry so much lighter. So this is just kind of a warm-up step, just to get the paint moving, get your paper wet, relax, kind of loosen up and get all the expectations out of your brain. You just want to kind of do this intuitively. So whatever you see in your paper is going to kind of influence us and guide us, kind of like the ink splotches from the psychiatrist. You start seeing pictures in them. So okay, so I've done that. I'm just coming back now with some water, just sprinkling on some water just to kind of break up a few little areas. You can see the water spreads out the pigment a little bit and leaves little spots. So I'm taking my number 8 round brush here, and I'm just splattering in some yellow. I'm thinking maybe some yellow lupines or some kind of spiky flower. I like the spiky flowers. So I did this with a little heavier paint, so it's more of the milk consistency where it's not super transparent, and you got some body to that paint, because I'm putting it on my wet background and I'm wanting it to kind of bleed and kind of soften out and but have some more yellow intense areas on it, if you know what I mean. So I'm just kind of thinking spikes at this point, and I'm just grabbing the brush by the very, very end, so it makes me very loose. So it makes my wrist loose and my fingers and everything loose, because I don't have all the control that I would have if I hold my brush real tight like I would a pencil. So I'm holding it right at the bottom there. And I'm just going to drop in a little bit of green. These could be hollyhocks. I'm not sure at this point what they're going to be, but I'm thinking some little green leafy areas in between the flowers. So I'm adding some green And I can change this at any point because it's going to still dry so softly that I could come over it with another layer and change it. So this is just very free, very loose, just playful. Be very playful with your loose paintings. So much fun. Just drop in a little bit here, a little bit there. Using kind of an organic green, not too bright. It might end up being shadow. And I'm just strengthening up some of those yellow areas where I think I definitely want them to be. I'm just adding a little more yellow as it's kind of spread out into and soaked into the paper. And then I have those yellow areas behind these spikes, which are great because it shows that there's more flowers in the background, but I don't have to define those. In fact, in the loose painting, I don't have to define much at all. So it all depends, what you feel like as you're painting it. But I love to start paintings out this way. It just makes me feel so uncommitted. You know what I mean? I'm just playing. I don't have to make all these permanent decisions just yet. So I'm just playing. I'm doing 5 spikes, different heights. I don't want them to look like a fence. I just want them to look natural, organic. And then on this side, I'm thinking I'm going to do some rose flowers of some sort, but bigger individual flower, and having faced different directions. I'm just kind of dropping them in there, here and there, and I'm kind of keeping in mind odd numbers because that always is more pleasing to look at. And some will go off to the left, some go off to the right, drop in a few areas of more intense color, but it doesn't have to be solid. So just here and there, as I think I can see the shape of my flower going in. And I'm trying to think of composition. I don't want it, to be right in the center. I like it off to the side. So I have these yellow spiky ones kind of in the middle, but then it goes on to the right. So now these on the left-hand side, I'm thinking I want them to kind of incorporate into those yellow flowers. So I'm not sure where, or if it should just be buds or maybe another wave of flowers. Or I could just put color in the background and just let it, have that illusion that there are more flowers in the background. So I'm just adding a few here, and I can make these decisions as I go. So maybe I'm thinking maybe hollyhocks, kind of. Rose of Sharon, perhaps. I'm not quite sure, but I want to make them every direction, all different directions. So now I'm taking that big moppy brush again, just clear water, and I want to just soften and diffuse some of these edges. So I'm just taking the water, pushing it into the wet paint on the edges of the flowers, not everywhere, and I'm leaving some white spots. I want some dry spots on my paper, so it won't just mingle into one big thing, but all of this pretty much is wet on wet at this point, and I just want to just kind of soften those edges and maybe just dab a little in between those yellow spiky flowers. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe I'll just have the flowers on one side and then have a little bit of that color mingle through my yellow spiky flowers. So I'm doing the same thing on the spiky flowers. I'm just going to soften the edges a bit, just some plain water, kind of bringing it out into the background of my painting. So this makes the background. The more of this diffusing of the edges I do, it makes the background also. And I got those orange flowers, so I'm just going to plop in some flower shapes, but they're going to mix into this water, so they're going to get very soft, which is good. I can come back and define just a few petals here and there, but for now I'm just kind of putting a few shapes in, thinking maybe there are Maybe it could be Gerber daisies or, echinacea, zinnias, all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be a certain flower. You can just make them up. I'm sure there's a flower out there in the world that will look like the one you made up. There's so many different ones we don't know about, right? Somebody does, but we don't. Zinnias. Just putting in some color. I like orange. Orange and yellow, pink, purple. Very happy summer flowers. I'm just getting in some petal shapes. And I'm thinking I kind of want them to cascade from the right to the left. And peeking in and out of these yellow flowers here. I'm going to say they are snapdragons. Let's go with snapdragons. So I know what to call them anyway. I'm just putting in some shapes. And I went ahead and put just a dab of green in there. And I didn't like it, so I'm going to soften it. Diffuse it out. And while I'm at it, I'll soften these other ones. Kind of get them into the background a little bit. The ones you don't like, go ahead and soften them out, because we can come back and define a petal here or there. I'm just going to put a little bit of that color all through these snapdragons. Just very soft, very faint in the background. I got my little brush because I'm trying to make maybe petal shapes or flower shapes. So I'll get a little bit more paint on it and come back over to this side. Make a few more little small ones because they're back in the background. And then they're a little larger in the foreground. I'm just softening those edges. So I'm just kind of plotting a plot for my painting here. So nothing's definite. But look at to the left how those flowers are drying. So they're kind of painting themselves. They are telling me what they want to be. And it's looking pretty. I can see, top leaves and leaves that are bent backwards already. So I'm just going to continue on putting my orange in here. So it's coming all across the bottom, up the right hand side, over the center point, into these where I'm going to have some purple. So I like the foreground to be a little bolder. I'll put those ones in the foreground, make them more defined. And just diffusing the edges with just plain water in my big mop brush that holds a ton of water and a ton of paint. So as these are drying and you can see the little petals starting to emerge, you can strengthen your colors here and there. Pardon me. Tickle. And I think I need a little bit to bring it over a couple over here to make them all throughout my whole little garden here. And I'm putting some smaller little bud shapes in, softening the edges. So at this point I'm just looking for shape and color, but no definition. And I'm just gonna maybe put some little purple flowers here, maybe little borage flowers. My mom always grew borage. I never knew why, but she never, did anything with it. She just liked it, and it spread all over the place. And my dad got mad because it was looked like weeds, when it didn't have all its purple flowers on it. My mom loved them though. But this summer I was at a farmer's market and I bought a bag of baby lettuce from a farmer, and he took a handful of borage blossoms and threw it into my lettuce, and it looked so beautiful, these little purple flowers all in there. And you know what? He told me they taste like cucumbers, and they really do. So it's perfect for a salad. It tasted just like cucumbers. Took a little convincing of my friends. I brought the salad for dinner to their house, and they're like, "Oh, there's flowers in here." There was also a couple pretty squash blossoms that he had put in the bag, so I just kind of put them on the top, as like a decoration. But you can eat them. He grew them with no pesticides or anything, so they were edible. Surprising and really good. So I'm just throwing in some flowers. I'm softening those edges. Now see, that one kind of ran away from me, but it was no problem. I just wiped my brush off in my paper towel and mopped it back up, because everything's so wet you can remove things at this point. And then it kind of made like a little edge you can see around those snapdragons there on the very left. And I think that's interesting. Okay, so here we are. We got the purple, we got the background. I did go ahead and add a couple stems to what I'm thinking are hollyhocks. And now I'm going to put a few petals in more flower shaped for my snapdragons. I'm not going to get real fussy about each petal and the little lip on it. And, I'm just going for very loose, just enough information that you know that that's a snapdragon or a spiky flower. So I'm doing little flower petals kind of in a circle here and there. Some of them I'll make a little bit bigger, like that one right there, to indicate that little lip on the snapdragon. And I'm just, throwing in petals in different directions. And maybe, just a couple off of the edges where it might just be the side of a flower. Just kind of putting petals in there. So yeah, I'm just keep on now going. So now this paint is also that milk consistency, and you can see it's bolder because my paper has dried so much it's just barely damp right now. So this isn't going to soften and diffuse into the background as much because there's not as much moisture to carry that paint away, so it's going to stay more where I paint it now, but it's still going to have a soft edge because there's some moisture still in the paper, so it'll make it a little bit soft, but it's not really going to spread very much. So I'm just kind of thinking about my shape here. So do I want them to be like a perfect cone, or do I want it to have like a little bit of bend in it? So I'm thinking about that, and then I'm just going to splatter on just a little bit of green, just to maybe make those kind of centers in the flowers, add a little shadow. Or it could be leaves. I don't know. Let's see what happens. And I'm just kind of thinking, do I want to put some green in at this point in those leaf areas? If I do, let's see what will happen. That's going to move into my yellow. But that's going to make a pretty yellow green, and I can come back and put more leaves in there if I want to. So this is going to diffuse into the yellow because that's still very wet. And it's kind of adding a little bit of depth, isn't it? So I think I like that. So wherever I think I can see behind the flower, I'm adding a little green in there. Because a lot of times there's like little leaves going all the way up along with the flowers, and little stems and the little green little bit that holds the flower to the stem. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, I gotta probably look up and get the anatomy of a flower so I know how to say it to you. But anyway, so we'll continue on. So I'm going to do this on my 5 spikes. So I got the odd number. And then I can see my little background colors are super soft. So I'm going to come back once this is dry and put some background, I think, in there with some more yellow, but not define them at all. Well, at least that's my thoughts at this point. It could change. Often does. Most time does. So I'm just going to plop them in. Maybe a little bit of green on that very top where the flowers aren't open yet. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just adding some of that green down in between where I think the stem and the little leaves off the stem might be. And I like how it's giving it the depth. Like that. I do apologize once again that it is a bit out of focus, and I hope you can still figure out what I'm doing. I lost the autofocus on my camera, so I'm trying to focus it on my own, but sometimes, well, let's just put it, I need new glasses and I don't see everything as well. And I can see now that this is pretty blurry, but you can see what I'm doing, I hope. So hopefully the rest of the video won't be as blurry. But I'm trying to show you while I'm painting, and I can't go back and retape it. It'll be a whole different painting the next time. So we'll just go with it for now. Let me know if it really bothered you. I apologize. I try to get my husband to come down and use his eyes for me, but he wasn't home at this time. So yeah, sometimes I have a hard time. I gotta get my eyes looked at. Continuing on doing the same thing. And just a little yellow there. I thought it looked a little too dark green. And I'm leaving some of the yellow behind that I originally put on there. So that's peeking through also. And it's giving my flowers a little bit of definition, but not too much. Very loose. I'm still holding my brush a little farther back than, really close up, halfway down, just so I can have a little bit more control, but I don't want it to be too defined, so I like to hold it farther back. It makes me be more loose. This is a happy painting to do in the winter because it'll make you think of spring and all the flowers popping up. I don't have any of these flowers here in Florida, but I used to grow them in Michigan. So they are happy memories for me. We have lots of things in Florida that we don't have in Michigan, so it's a good trade. Adding the green. You can use any greens you like. I tend to be using a lot of that green Apatite Genuine. I've been using that a lot. I like sap green. I love all the olive greens. I like to vary my greens in a floral painting. I'm just taking a little water here. A little bit of water and just splattering it on there. It kind of breaks it up. Makes it start to flow a little bit here and there, or let it do its own thing. Painting itself. Last one over here. So let's get that one all painted in. Same way. These paintings are a lot of fun, and they're also faster. You can get it done. Usually I can get one of these done in a day, where some of my other paintings that are more definitely defined, and I spend sometimes a month on those paintings. Sometimes you just don't want to do that, and you just want to be free and play. So that's when I do this kind of technique. Yeah, and I'm really liking how that green just kind of puts depth into my flower. Makes it look a little more rounded. Just dropping in some water. Okay. Now let's take a little bit more yellow and just put those little spikes in the background. So you can see that there's just a little image of that there's more going on back there, but I don't want to make it too dark, so I'm going to soften this one out. Make it too dark and then it takes away from the foreground. So I'm just making it soft. I don't want to blend it in too much. I want my main flowers to show. I just want to bring them out here a little bit more to the edge. I just did kind of like a dab with, a lot of paint in my mop brush, but just kind of dabbed it on there and just let it be loose. Okay, so now I'm coming back with a little bit more of the rose madder. Doing a second layer on these flowers. And I've decided that they are kind of like hollyhocks. A single hollyhock, some of them are doubles. They have a lot of leaves and they're really ruffly. Those are beautiful. And I'm just bringing some veins out. Make them look that kind of crepey look that they have. Bring some little edges to it. But I don't want to do the whole thing. I don't want everything to be defined. And I can do more layers on this. So I'm just going to do a little layer and then stop and come back to it. I'm going to add a little bit of the center here, because I usually have like a lighter center. I'll let some of that rose blend into it. And I'm bringing it a little bit deeper, because as it was drying a bit, oh, I like that. As it was drying a bit, it just kind of blended right in. So we had to give it a little darker definition. I think it'd be really pretty to use like a red violet or something to do this part. That would have probably defined it even, or made it more dramatic, I guess. Sometimes, you paint and everything's all the same level. It's kind of the same values in your colors. And it's good to vary them. Add some darks, some lights, some pops, some bright colors, some deep dark colors. Don't always remember to do that, while you're painting. And then sometimes it's too late in watercolor, because you can't go back and add it lighter. So you got to think about all these things beforehand, but it's okay. I'm kind of liking the way it's drying, so I'm going to, stick with this rose. I could always add a little darker. Can't go lighter, but I can go darker. I can go lighter with white or wiping it out. There's tricks, but in general, that's what you want to think. You got to start with your lights and work your way to your darks. And do I want to define every flower? Or do I just want it to be like a little hint that there's a flower there? Because I like how the edges on this one are nice and soft. And I want to separate it from the one in front of it. I'm adding that yellow and the green and the little bit of mingling in with the pink. And that one mingled a little too much, but let's see. Put a little bit more rose. Try to give it a little bit more depth so that it looks like it's sucking in towards the center. That's a weird way to say it. But we'll do the same thing to the ones over here. These ones are a little bit smaller because they're kind of behind just a bit. In what directions, want it to go different directions. and still soften out those edges. I just made my center bleed. And I'll put a little green in there and that'll give it the depth. So let's match it up. Let's put more green on the other ones. And that one's really soft, so I blotted it a little, keep it all looking good there. This one really doesn't have a center because it's kind of the side of the flower. So I'm going to add a little bit of that rose, kind of draw a few petals in. Just a little bit. Yeah, I can see it coming out now. Now make it facing towards the right now, and we'll put a little center in there. It's kind of telling me as I paint it. I kind of have an idea now in my head where at first I just knew flowers. That's as far as my thoughts went. And then I went with color. And then after I chose my colors, I started to see the patterns in how the paint was drying or accumulating, in certain areas. So that told me the shape of my flowers. So now that I've got the shape of my flowers there, now I'm coming back and making them flowers, but I want to keep them soft. And I want them to diffuse. So I had to kind of paint in this little flower petal by petal. And now I'm going to bring it out a bit, adding a little bit of definition. Not too much, just like the other flowers. And I think it's too wet. I should probably just let it dry. But sometimes I get impatient. And I want to keep going with it. Let me think. I'll spread it out a little bit here and soften those edges just with water. Blend them out. Put a bit of a yellow in the center. Maybe strengthen up some of those other centers while they're still wet, and it'll all blend together. And add a little bit of green. Okay, so that one's done, and now I'm thinking I should put some stems in. You can see I'm indecisive about it. I'll put a little bit more background flowers. So these ones will be my foreground, and I'll just put some color in here and make it more into the background or smaller. Because I think like if it was a hollyhock, there'd be flowers kind of close together all the way down the stem. So I'm just going to add in a few more and probably try to keep them soft and in the background. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that same orange just around the centers of my daisies down here. Or maybe it's coreopsis. So I'm going to start with the center. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of drag out a little bit in between the petals. Add a little bit more color, a little bit of definition to them so you know what they are. So I'm looking at my flowers here and deciding which ones I want to do that to, or all of them. So I like painting like this because you make your decisions as you go. So it's not so hard on your poor little brain. And it's just playful. Do that all around these main flowers that I did. some of them soft at this point. Painting in some of the petals. I used to be big into gardening. If you've listened to my other videos, I've probably told you some stories about my gardens. And I used to get these Burpee catalogs for the seeds, and they'd have like some artist drew like what the flowers beds, how you could lay them out. I always loved looking at those, and I'd copy some of those layouts and put them in my yard, the gardens, and always had taller things in the back, things in the mid-ground, things in the foreground, and then you always wanted to have like different shapes, so spiky or round flowers, big puffy flowers, and then color for contrast. And some leafy stuff, leafy plants, just leaves like, what am I thinking of? They look like snowy lamb's ears or something. Lamb's ears, that would be good. Yeah, so there you got a little bit closer up. I'm just taking the tip of my brush. And see, now there you got a little bit of focus. You can see what I was doing. I'm so sorry for that. Just taking the tip of my brush, just drawing in some little definition of these flowers. And I'm trying to do it very loose and just paintbrushy. Not going for realism. Nope, just kind of whimsical, a little abstract. And I'm putting a little bit of Quin Gold into these petals here. I did it in a couple of them, and I didn't in a couple of them, so I'm going to go back and add a little bit of that Quin Gold. I'm just softening with water here. A little bit of orange, so we're starting with the orange. Just kind of sketchy. Sketchy is a good way to describe it. Just doing sketchy petals. And some of them, if they're looking off to one direction, then those petals would be shorter on the top and longer around the back. So not many of them are looking straight at me. They're kind of up or down or to one side or the other. I like to look at how people sketch flowers, without any color, not being a painting, but just somebody that drew flowers, and I like to see how they approached it, and that often helps me. Or if I had a photo, I like to put it into black and white on my camera, and I can see shapes better that way, because I guess my eyes want to see the color, and the color is very exciting to me, but you gotta have some shapes in there, so that's how sometimes I can see when I can't see it myself. So I love to look at reference books where people just sketched in them. Coloring books sometimes are good. I have a coloring book that's all flowers, and that's been very helpful for me because I can just see how it's drawn. And I'm pretty good at drawing. I can draw and make things look, almost like a photograph. I used to like to do that. I don't enjoy it as much now. Now it's too tight for me, so. But I like to kind of do these loose, sketchy drawings now. But when I was in high school, I did a lot of more realism things. I'd love to take the Audubon magazine and draw the animals. And I wanted to make them look exactly like the photograph. So I've always been drawing my whole life. But but for this I have no reference. Just coming out of my imagination, just things that I remember. Just playing around a little bit. And these I'm thinking are just kind of not open yet. They're just starting to open a little. All the leaves are still upward as that bud is opening up. And I think I'm just going to make one up right here and see how that looks. And I want them to paint pretty quickly. I don't want to sit and fuss with the details too much or it'll get too tight. So if I think just go quick, 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 plop, 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 that works for me. Add a little bit of water. And those ones, they're in the foreground, so I want them to be a little bit bold. There's one off of the side here on the left. I just kind of did the same thing with the bud. See right there. So now I have my purple flowers and I can see lots of centers. That's about all I can see. So I'm imagining the petals as I go around, thinking 5 petals probably. And I just kind of outlined them all there, which maybe isn't what I wanted to do. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue, but it's not showing up a lot. I'm going to try to wipe it out, and I just made a whole solid, everything the same. So it's not really what I wanted to do. So you always have to switch gears if you want. If you could say, I put a little bit of blue in there, a little bit of, and now I'm going to try and wipe out some of the color so I can have some highs and lows in my paint. And my blue just disappeared, and I'm thinking it's too wet to wipe it out right now. So maybe I just try again on another flower and then just kind of watch that one and come back to it. There, to start with the blue there. I got the purple around the edges. I want my other flowers to overlap, or these flowers overlap, or here and there, either way. And I kind of did the same thing, but I got a little bit more blue. So I think while it's wet, I'm going to take my bleed proof white and just try to recover my light areas. And I'm kind of, I'm liking that. Just kind of pushing it around. Oh, that's cool. I like that. Let's add a little depth to that center. Yeah, that's kind of pretty. So I like the bleed proof white. You can't really do much painting over it. A little bit maybe, but it ends up being kind of chalky. If you're not careful with it, it can look like you spit toothpaste out onto it. But I like that. That's kind of pretty how it's all bleeding, and I can come back and put a little bit of color on top, but nothing's going to be transparent anymore. It's going to be opaque wherever you put that white. But I thought that kind of was pretty, how it kind of pushed that purple to the edge, and I got the blue, put that blue in the center like that again. I just did something new for myself. I'd never done exactly that before. I've used the white before, but not made these flowers. So that was fun. Little happy experiment. This one's kind of underneath that top flower. I'll go a little bit more intense with my purple too, because it's behind and it can be darker in the shadows. Get my bleed proof white. I learned about bleed proof white from Deborah Rosenbach. She is on YouTube and she does loose flowers, and she's super talented. Just love her station or channel. Love watching it. It looks so easy, but it takes a lot of practice, and she does a wonderful job. Just very pretty. So she's a great one to watch. Deborah Rosenbach. So she uses a bit different approach than what I'm showing you here, of course, but I'd love to be able to do them as well as she does. So I'm just kind of thinking, you can tell when I'm thinking I'm waving my brush around like that. Like, oh, where do I want to put it? But sometimes that little motion makes you looser too, you know. It's good to stand up, take some good deep breaths, you know, in and out really slow, exhale. And inhale, and then do a shake like a dog. Shake, 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 shake. Shake your arms, shake your legs, shake your shoulders, shake everywhere. And it's funny, you can physically feel your body just let go and loosen up. So a couple times during this painting, go ahead, stand up and shake it off. And you would be amazed how much you can shake off a lot of tension. Sometimes you're thinking so hard, like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? You know, and you don't want to do that. You just want to have fun and just let your intuition take over and say, yeah, how about a little bit here? This looks like this should be this way. And let the painting paint itself and look and see what it's doing. And do you need to coax it, or do you want to just let it go and let it dry and then see what happens? And then you can always add more. Sometimes, most time. But yeah, so this, you know, and then experiment. So like this is an experiment, these purple flowers, and I'm loving them. I think they're really pretty. So just play with your paint. So this is Doc P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and you saw it came in a little jar. You know, it's only a couple ounces here. Let's even see if it is an ounce. It's 1 ounce. And it is titanium white. It's pretty fun stuff to play around with. I like that kind of frosty look it gives everything. So some of them are darker, some of them are lighter. The ones that are going underneath, I'm trying to make a little darker, or if you think that they might be in the shade or shadow from a petal or flower above, those can be a little darker. Some can be a little muted, more muted, and just blending into the background. So leave a few of those in there and leave some of those lost edges where you've taken the water and just, you know, got rid of a hard edge. Thinking, you know, I need some that are a little bit bolder. And trying to get 5 petals in there. So I'll leave a lost edge up there on the top, and I'll bring my white into there. Get my petal. Ooh, that one's pretty, how that petal kind of just spread out. Try not to touch it. That's the trick, you know. As you're telling yourself, oh, don't touch that. Let's see what happens. Your hand with your paintbrush goes right to it and paints over it. Happens to a bunch of us. Crazy. I do that same thing on all my little purple spots. Some of them I'm making up as I go. So not necessarily there was any purple underneath that, but I just decided it needs to be a flower, so I went ahead and made it up. Put my blue, that's some, I believe I'm using cerulean blue there. Just some soft, that's a pretty blue, it's like the sky. And a lot of times it's a little granular, so it kind of leaves a bit of a texture, which is interesting. This one's a soft one. Dropping in just a little bit of water because I want it to kind of flow into that purple. Bring that purple through, make it soft. Add a little blue to my center. So they're not borage flowers exactly. It's the colors of the borage flowers because they have that white in there too, and that blue in the center and purple on the outside. But they're spiky. The borage flowers have pointy leaves. But there's something out there. Sweet Williams, they could be Sweet Williams. Those are pretty flowers. Love to grow those in my garden in between my foxgloves. I had foxgloves, lots of foxgloves, and then I'd put that Sweet William, and they come in the purples and reds, really pretty pinks. I'd put them in between, so they're lower, so they'd grow up maybe, a third of the way as the foxgloves would go. That was a beautiful show in my garden. Early summer. Garden was gorgeous May, June, and then July. I'd have a lot of my perennials coming up and lilies. Fox in August, all my fox would be blooming. Garden phlox, they were so pretty too. I miss my Michigan garden. In Florida, I have orchids, which I love. They're beautiful. I grow a lot of succulents, and I grow ferns and bromeliads and air plants. I've got lots of air plants in my trees and a lot of pretty things too. Pagoda flowers are pretty. I'll have to paint those one day. And if you don't know what they are, I'll show you. So these are just some stems, kind of getting them in the direction of my flower heads, going different directions, different ways. And I'm carrying them through, but you don't have to carry it all the way through. Depends on your painting. So just kind of look at it and see which ones have to have a flower. Like these here, I don't want to draw every single stem into that. You'll see the stem. So now I'm going to continue my little hollyhock stem and put some leaves on either side. Kind of look like eucalyptus, little round leaves on this one. I think I might be making it up, but I think, round leaves would be pretty good shape for my painting. So maybe they're eucalyptus. So you see what I mean? It's not, you don't have to define it. You don't have to make it a certain flower. Just do some shapes. Different shapes. Different colors of green. A little yellow in there. Those other ones can be like little shadowy. And I'm going to come back, do the same thing on this portion of it. Because it kind of diffused into just a grainy texture, but not looking like a leaf at all. So I'm going to go ahead and put my leaves in and add just a little bit of yellow, kind of reflecting off of my snapdragons. Just a little yellow here and there. Put a little bit in those ones. There. Just like that. So now I think I need some shadowy branches behind there too. So, first I'm going to put some leaves, just a little bit of leaves. I'm using a little bit of a brush stroke technique here. Some places I'm just pressing my round brush down and it'll make a leaf shape and come back and fix it a little bit. Or I can take pressure, so like that. Did you see how I did that one? So it's light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and it'll make a point on both ends and thicker in the middle. So right there we go. There, I did it there. You can't see it because my hand's in the way. Fix my little point on my edge. But yeah, so the round brush can make its own shape. So that's enough for now. I'll put a different color in. So now I'm going to use a bit of a darker green and do the same thing. So light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. I did one over there. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Light, heavy, light. Just kind of drag in the stem. There we go. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Put a couple leaves together here and there. And watch to see how they dry, because a lot of times where you're pressing down, you're putting so much water and paint down. Sometimes they dry a little wonky. You might want to watch them and then spread a little paint out as they're drying so that, spread that thicker area out. Like on the left-hand side there, on the very edge, I have that. And I'm putting in now just some shaggy daisy-like leaves. And I'm using more of a yellow-green, something a little different, just to separate it from those leaves that I put on in my borage. I'm calling it borage. A little bit here and there. And I'm just kind of scrubbing those in with the tip of my brush. I'm not trying to make them look exactly like an echinacea leaf or a Gerber daisy or whatever this is. And here is my shadowy, so I've got like a bluish gray color here. And I think, they just look like shadowy ones in the back, little branches of those same leaves. I'm just kind of letting my brush, the paint just kind of come out of my brush and fade. And maybe there's one kind of over this way. So my flowers are kind of all leaning to the right. So my branches can lean to the right. This little clump's growing towards the sun. Put a few in here to tie it together. Just tying it in with some of those rounded leaves. And I think I need it to go into my snapdragons. So it looks like there's something behind there. More going on in the garden. Nice wildflower garden. I love the wildflowers. I had those mats in my backyard. I just took a mat. One time I had this little place, maybe about, it was about 3 foot by 6 foot maybe. And I just took the mat of seeds that had wildflowers in them just to see what would happen. It was so pretty. So many different flowers popped up, and it was really, really pretty, and I didn't have to do nothing but roll it out and water it. I already had fertilizer and everything in there. Very simple. And it was pretty just to fill in a space. So some of those little leaves I put in front of the stem because they don't always grow side by side, a little on each side. Some of them grow forward too, like around the stem. So yeah, I think that tied that side in with my snapdragons because I have the same petals going through. And now I'm just gonna put a little depth into some of these little leaves so they look like leaves and not just green smushies. I just got a couple leaves I'm sticking in here, just defining a few shapes here and there, letting most of it just be smushies. Like my technical term, smushy. And I put a little leaves out to the side maybe. There's probably some that would stick out. Just going up my stem. Putting in a couple leaves. So the painting's shaping up already. Kind of have to look at it and think, now do I need more? What do I need? Definitely going to need some centers in those orange flowers down there. So do I want them to be gold or... Now I'm thinking about these little background ones. And I'm thinking, I just define the tops a little, but I want them to be very light. So I just blotted it with the towel, paper towel, kind of bringing that down in between, but I don't want it to be as dark as the forefront. I want those to stand out. So keeping that very light. And what do I want to do? Little purple centers. That's pretty. I think I've seen those in the nursery before. Purple centers on little orange, kind of daisy-like flowers. Do you have the nurseries where you live? We used to have, in Michigan, they still have, but we don't have it here. Just greenhouse after greenhouse after greenhouse. Like this one place we went to, Denowitz, it was called, had, probably 20 greenhouses. And you could just go through all the greenhouses with your shopping cart and fill it up with all these flowers and beautiful. The whole ceiling was all hanging baskets, and loved going in there. The air was just so full of the scent of flowers, and it was just a magical paradise. Me and my mom went almost every day, and we'd come home with Carla. We couldn't even hardly fit them all in our trunk of the car. And then the next day we'd go back and get more, and then come home and plant them, and then we'd go back and get more. Yeah, we were a little obsessed, I guess. Good memories with my mom, though. Mom's gone now. I miss her so much. I miss all the days with my flowers with my mom. And I'm just adding a little bit of depth around the center. I want it to look kind of sunken in. And maybe define a couple of these individual petals. Not too much. Just adding another layer, another third layer now, I think, on this. Might be number 4. But that's how you do with watercolor. You build on top of it. You keep adding layers, building it up. Let it dry, see where it's at. Build some more. You can use very washed out glazes where the paint is so thin you can see right through it, but if you paint that over the top of something, it can change the color just a little bit, and it can get the effects that you're looking for. So now I'm just bringing in a little bit of that rose madder. So this whole flower I've done with just the rose madder, but just different strengths of it. Yeah, I like how that one really looks like the sun's shining on it. I can leave it alone enough not to ruin the effect. Leave it alone, leave it alone, leave it alone. Oh, it's still there. That's good. I like that one. It's all about what you like. You gotta please yourself. If you're in it to sell it, you still gotta paint to please yourself. Somebody else will like it. But if you're in it just to practice and relax and have fun and learn something new, you're the one who's viewing it, so you do what you like. Use the colors you like. If you want it more defined, define it more if you want, but I'm just showing you this kind of loose approach to painting flowers. Another YouTube video I've been watching is Crystal Tan, and she's a newer YouTube artist, but she's doing really good on loose florals, and I just love her. She's so cute. I just love listening to her, and I love how she paints her flowers, kind of a little bit like what I'm doing, but of course hers look like her, But I do love to watch her. And Jenna Rainey, she's another one that I love to watch. There's so many. Always learn something watching somebody else paint. See how their mind interprets it and how they get to their results. So there's my finished painting, and I have added some flecks of gold, and I took my little micron pens and drew a little bit on there. I did some white And, each one I did a little bit, and then I did a little bit with my metallic paint. Well, that's all for today. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you've learned something. If you would like to leave me a comment, I would love to hear from you. That, is really nice to know that somebody's watching my videos out there. And I love to hear from you. So until we meet again, peace and love be with you always. Bye-bye.